Five-shot final, JCM Jones from the Mothership and Dirty South Soccer. Joe Patrick from 19.9 The Game and Dirty South Soccer is over there. Kurt Castle was over there with the intro. That's his song, Chances. Joe, we are tired.
Ooh, it's a struggle bus today. I don't know why. I don't know why. I'm blaming the Braves personally because they had me stressed out, up late last night, worrying about my boys, Max Fried and Christian Pache, both with injuries. Sad, but anyway, yeah. I mean, and also it's just a very weird game. Obviously, we're going to talk about it here in a bit, but yeah, it's a weird morning.
I think I just have post-game hangover. I was actually there, which was good. It wasn't quite the same as normal, of course. We weren't even in the press box. We were hiding out behind the goal on the left side if you were looking at your TV broadcast. But it was there, and it didn't really hit me that I was even really at a thing, I guess, until Jurgen Damm finally scores to make it 1-0 in the 91st minute. The crowd was loud. There was noise. And I was like, oh yeah, this is how this works.
Yeah, it was noticeable. I mean, it was noticeable on the broadcast. You just hear people. I don't know if you will have, I'm interested to hear from you about this, but like at Braves games, especially recently when things have not been so great and it's not like a constant buzz of the crowd, it's like you can hear individual comments or
it's weird. Yeah. And that's exactly what's missing is that regular hum. You just can you can hear a little too much. And when you're that close, like you are at Kennesaw, sometimes you hear sounds like Ezequiel Barco kicking the ball right into a dude's head from 10 yards away on a free kick. And you go, oh God, oh no.
You hear the sound of flesh being smacked by.
Dude, I thought I would have died. I would have just exploded right on the spot. It did not look fun. But the game overall was mostly fun to an extent, I think. Like I said, it was good to be among a crowd of some sort. But I think everyone kind of came away from that one going, okay, this was not the step forward we thought it could potentially be. Not that we were expecting, but what it could potentially be from last week. It kind of seems like not a setback, but just kind of maybe still figuring some things out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think everybody was so excited by what they saw from the team in the previous game in the first leg. I think that just even looking back right now over the first two legs, the first leg was the more impressive performance, despite the fact that they were down to 10 men for half that game because of what you saw in that half when they were down a man and also just some of the stuff they were creating. And again, maybe it's all just juxtaposed based on what we had what we had previously seen from the team. So it was a bigger step up going from last year to game one than going from game one to game two. But I mean, I'm still very optimistic about this team. It's not like anything that we saw yesterday has me down in any serious way, but I think that it is kind of representative of some of the struggles that this team might have early on in the season, just trying to figure out like concrete passages of play, especially in the final third. I think you can kind of tell that some of that stuff isn't as well drilled. Like it's more the buildup and things like that are more well drilled into this team right now. And it's just going to take some time for these guys to gel together personally, and then also just tactically figure out some ways to break teams down.
We're going to get into all of that in depth. We're going to get into all of your questions. But first, Joe Patrick, we have to get into business time. Business time. Joe Patrick again, a 1-0 win last night over Alajuelense. Jurgen Damm gets the goal. Barco gets the assist.
The glorious assist that he didn't want to have. But then he celebrated it like a goal. It was pretty funny. He like ran to the corner.
He celebrated like he had just finished like a 10K and was crossing the finish line. It was awesome.
Both arms up. Just like
Perfect. It still counts. Most importantly, Atlanta United is on to the quarterfinals of Concacaf Champions League, where they will face the winner of Saprissa and Philadelphia. That goes down tonight. I believe kickoff is set for 8 p.m. if you were listening to this on a Wednesday. But kind of like Joe hinted at, it was a weird game. It was a weird game. Some folks came away from it thinking, no, this is really, really solid. Some folks came away thinking maybe it was a little discouraging. I'm kind of in the middle. I think it just kind of was. And I think it was just kind of one of the small, tiny steps on the way to this team being a force that is going to be really difficult to deal with for the rest of the league. But a few things I want to kind of note right off the bat. And one is that at the very beginning of this one, I thought that the interplay between the fullbacks and the wings, especially, was very, very solid. And that's where you saw so many of Atlanta United's chances and half chances kind of coming in there. They were able to get space on the wing pretty consistently. And whether that was Brooks Lennon, whether that was even Emerson Hyndman came over a couple of times, Marcelino Moreno was out there to steal some souls in his first start of the year. It looks really, really sharp, and it's really just pretty to watch. I was sitting behind the goal they were running towards, and just to watch how that kind of interconnected and to see it on kind of a horizontal plane
Mm-hmm.
was really, really interesting to me. And it's really, really pretty to
Mm-hmm.
see, honestly. But those chances were there. They were creating opportunities from the wing and the end line. And normally when you do that enough, you will get shots on target. You will get shots. That wasn't the case. LDA was in a pretty low block the entire time, I thought, as well. It made it more difficult. There were little things there that were encouraging, just didn't quite have the end product.
Yeah, I kind of asked Brooks Lennon about this after the game, and it looked like he kind of it's hard to tell sometimes because they have the mask on, but it seemed like he was a little bit kind of irked by my question because I was talking about kind of the lack of chances and shots, even though, I acknowledge that I think that the team did look pretty good moving the ball up into that final third. Like I thought the build-up play was very organized, and they were actually finding those balls in some of those channels, like you said, in those like kind of half spaces between the wing and the middle, where you could see guys like Marcelino Moreno really causing positional problems for Alajuelense. So I thought it was good. It just didn't seem like there was that last crisp like final ball and shot attempt in the box. It seemed like there was a lot of confusion. There was even one point where Zeke had the ball at his feet in the box, and he's like pointing, trying to like direct people where to go so he can like make the pass, and like while he's standing like 12 yards from the mouth of the goal, which is just kind of bizarre. The fact that one, he would have that kind of time to be able to do something like that, but I think it also speaks to just like the lack of it's not even like hesitation. I think it's just like players not kind of yet on natural instinct making anticipating each other's movements.
Zeke is the traffic controller is a new development this year, but it's fascinating to me because he did that. You're right. He did that near the box that one time. He also did it a few other times that I'm not sure that was maybe picked up on camera because he was kind of off ball. There was a set piece scenario at the beginning of the game where Zeke was like screaming and pushing kind of people to the right spot and waving Emerson Hyndman forward. And I think a lot of that had to do with maybe Gabriel Heinze really focusing on the details of these set pieces. They took forever to get going.
Interesting.
It was interesting to see how they kind of worked it. You could see what the set kind of was. And Atlanta as a team is going to really benefit, of course, if you can be able to be a threatening team on set pieces. They were really small last year. They're still kind of small. It'll be interesting to see if any of that kind of design stuff will result in more of those goals. But I don't know, man. Overall, it wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
It wasn't a disaster.
Well, so again, I'm doing player ratings kind of while the matches are going to be going on this year, as I did obviously after Darren Eels gave me some crap about Barco's rating for the first one. And then so I was doing the ratings for this one, and it was very tough because I felt like I was giving every player the same rating. I think like almost every player had like a 5, a 6, or a 7, I want to say, except for Joseph. He got my low rating. I'm really coming at some of the controversial figures here. I mean, we could talk about him, but I just thought it was interesting. I had Barco higher, and then I instinctively like ticked him down at the very end. I don't know. I wouldn't kind of take a ton into the numbers that I end up putting on those names in that column because it's just kind of spur of the moment type stuff. But I just thought it was interesting because it was like, I thought Zeke was good, especially in that second half when he moved to central midfield. I thought he was much, much better. But then it's like, how do I give a player a 7 and a man of the match rating if the offense or the attack kind of sputtered for most of the night, So I ended up just giving the man of the match to Miles Robinson, because if you argue that, you have to sleep with that on your conscience that you're arguing against Miles Robinson. So
And what kind of monster, whatever Dane, such a thing. Look, from my perspective, just being there, I think you can kind of chalk the lack of shots up to maybe a couple things. Like I said, the chances, the step before creating an actual chance was there, and very similar to last week. It was there, but you look at maybe how they were marking Joseph out of the game. It seemed like a couple guys were on him in the box just about every single time. You keep in mind that Joseph isn't quite Joseph still yet. It doesn't seem like. I'm still waiting to see him jump again. He hasn't quite gotten to that level where you are shocked that a human his size can get that high. Right.
He's like sneaky good at headed goals. He has been so far in his MLS career.
And maybe you haven't quite seen him at full out sprint yet. Of course, the thing about that, I don't want people to get too mixed up with that, because Joseph has never been a dude that's busting his ass the entire game. Not in the sense that you would normally see it, not from someone like Brooks Lennon, who is running up and down the entire time, getting forward, everything like that. Joseph is someone who is always busted his ass at the right times. It's a very striker kind of thing, where you know where to turn on the jets, where to make things happen, when making those runs can cause issues. And Joseph is very, very good at conserving energy that way, and you see it from people all over the world who are some of the best strikers in the world. Don't get too concerned with that. Not yet. What you need to be concerned about is whether or not he can get to that high end speed when he is doing those short bursts, and whether or not he can get the vertical he needs to make things happen.
Well, what I worry about, or like, I guess my concern with Joseph's fitness right now is more, I mean, I know that he's not going to be the Brooks Lennon type. And, it's kind of funny to think back to that, where he won in 2018, he won MLS MVP, Golden Boot, the team won MLS Cup, obviously. And I think that year started with him like getting in a kerfuffle in the freaking tunnel with a fan who was like giving him crap for not running more or something like that. So that's always kind of been his thing. But also I'm just kind of curious, because in this Heinze system, like, you really need, it's high pressure, it's playing up high, and maybe Joseph is still in kind of Frank de Boer mold, where he's kind of not as aggressive, pushing high up the field. I mean, I think you could see at times he knew he had to close down, but I think that there is just a level of fitness that he needs to regain, which will come over time. And I think just, I hope that his confidence and like the mentality of Joseph comes back relatively quickly as well. Although I think we discussed this on the last show that we did, that I'm not overly optimistic about that happening relatively soon. Like, I hear people be like, well, okay, he'll need a month and then he'll be back, or 2 months and then he'll be back. I find it hard to believe that he's just like going to like come back in a snap like that. Like, I feel like it's going to be this very slow, gradual process where he might not be back to the guy that we are accustomed to seeing until the end of the season, maybe. Like, and I don't know if he'll ever be the same guy he was in 2017, 2018, just from an athletic standpoint, just because he's several years older than that now. And every player kind of naturally progresses and becomes less athletic as they get into their late 20s. I don't know exactly, can't remember exactly how old he is right now. I think he's 27-ish, so he's still in his prime, of course, but I'm just being very, very patient with Joseph at this point right now, not really expecting anything. And I asked Gabriel Heinze about him after the game last night, and he pretty much said the same thing. He's like, we're not judging Joseph on his what he did, good or bad, in the games right now. Right now, they're just focused on getting him the minutes, getting him that confidence, that time to build his confidence back.
Which, I mean, you talk about getting him the minutes. I was kind of surprised to see him start in the first place.
It was good. It was good that he was able to get that 65 in.
Absolutely. I don't think we'll see that same thing on Saturday against Orlando, but I've been wrong before, like literally yesterday when I said on a national thing that Joseph was not gonna start. And then he did. Let's keep kind of going around the field here, and just kind of, I think we can look at just about every single player and maybe take something away from what happened here. We'll move over to the wing and look at Marcelino Moreno. I think it's super interesting to see this shift, which we didn't see coming, because Marcelino has been that kind of hybrid 8 10, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
He's a midfielder. Like in modern soccer, he's a midfielder. We should really maybe chill on the whole numbers thing sometimes, but maybe that can be helpful. I don't know. Anyway, Teal Football pointed this out, and I think it's just a great assessment of what it is. Gabby Heinze figured out that Marcelino Moreno can dribble past literally anyone in sight and said, no, no, no. Y'all are all idiots, everyone who has ever coached Marcelino Moreno before this instance. He is a winger. I don't disagree right now.
Yeah, he's an interesting player because he takes guys on so often. Like there was a time in the game last night where he was taking a guy on, and it was kind of like he doesn't do it with finesse necessarily. It's kind of like he'll like muscle his way past somebody, kind of like a way that you would expect from an aggressive central midfielder type of player. And so it was funny because it like took a little bit for him to kind of battle past this guy, but he eventually won the take on. And then there was another guy there, and he was just like, "Screw it, I'm taking this guy on too." And then I think like the ball got knocked out of bounds or something like that. But that was very like quintessential to me, Marcelino Moreno, where he's just gonna like take on players who are in front of him. But he's a bit of a tweener to me because he is kind of not like a flair player in the sense of like he's going to be doing like crazy step overs and has this like aggressive first step, and doing kind of those classic winger things. But also, I think he can be very effective with his skill set in some of those spaces in the wide areas. Again, kind of in those half spaces, especially when he's got maybe more of a direct line speedster like a Brooks Lennon or a George Bello overlapping and providing that threat as well.
The varying skill sets of all the wingers are interesting to me. Because normally when you think about a winger, they normally have a very specific kind of mold and everything like that. But you look at, I mean, even the difference between just someone as simple like Jurgen Damm and Marcelino, it's two very different styles of getting around people and getting to the spaces on the wing and to the end line and everything like that. And I think we'll talk more about that when we kind of get to the halftime substitution, which I thought was super, super interesting. But Marcelino, when he is beating folks off the ball, I mean, it's so dangerous, especially in that first half when you had Brooks Lennon overlapping with him, making those runs. And of course, it's so interesting to watch the fullbacks shift centrally. And I'm not sure it really shows up too much, but when you're watching from the angle I was last night, again, on that horizontal plane, George and Brooks were central midfielders sometimes, essentially. It's crazy. It seems totally out of the normal, but that width the wingers are getting, like Marcelino and then Dom and then Barco at times as well, was wild to see. And I think they're still kind of figuring out exactly how those rotations work and exactly how often those rotations should be happening. I saw a few comments from folks that have studied Heinze saying that the rotations just weren't quite there yet, but that'll come. And Marcelino murking 5 dudes at a time on the wing is gonna result in good things happening. It was amazing to watch him on that right side at the beginning of the game because the way the stadium was set up, the La Liga fans were like right in that corner where he was doing that. And I'm sure they were saying terrible, terrible things to him, but they were getting all sorts of fired up every time he got a foul or won a foul or ruined some dude's life right there on the pitch. It was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah. And I thought generally he was a threat. I mean, I know that I don't even know what rating I ended up giving him. I don't know if it was great rating, but I thought he was getting into dangerous spaces. It's just kind of the final ball, those final moments of the attacking play where once those get shored up, I think that you're going to see this team create a lot more good shots on goal.
And Atlanta may just simply need to figure out how to get more folks in the box, right? Because
Sure.
as long as you're getting to those spaces, the chances will come. Again, it's the step before the chances.
Well, that's so interesting that you mentioned that because there was a moment in the game last night where I was watching Barco when the team had the ball again in the final third, like in the box and around the box, and Barco is dropping. He was like dropping deeper than almost anybody. He was like right in front of the central midfielders. The reason was because he was trying to find space because the box was so congested. He knew that if he just threw himself up into that mess, then there was no way he was going to be able to receive the ball to potentially make something happen. So I understand why he was doing that, but I also am interested to see if there is any more directive from Gabriel Heinze to just be like, hey, just get yourself forward. Because, when Tata Martino was here, I can pretty much guarantee the way that this game would have played out where when Alajuelense is sitting back and sitting deep, he would just be like, get forward, get in the box, get crosses in. And like, that's not really the way we like to think about Tata Martino and like this modern Argentine, Bielcista type of manager, but that really was his he was big on that. And I think that's why you have struggles early in the season. It's like very hard. It's like the hardest thing to do in soccer is to like break down a team centrally, especially, and score goals. So I think that's kind of just where Atlanta was running into trouble.
I want folks to consider too that this may not have been a directive from Gabby, but it could have been in the back of the players' minds at the very least. They didn't need to score,
That's right. Yep.
And so, that may be in the back of your mind if you do get too far forward, you get caught out, and you're maybe the reason that this tie gets flipped on its head. You don't want to be that person. So maybe there was some hesitancy there. I highly, highly doubt Gabby was like, be careful. That just doesn't seem to be in the MO at all. But it could have been in the back of the players' minds as well. We're going to shift wings, though. We're going to check in on our buddy Zeke, who we'll call him a winger for now, but he did shift centrally in the second half. Zeke, again, we got already talked about a little bit. It's always kind of hard to figure out exactly what we're getting from him because he is so involved, but there are results that are very good. There are results that are fascinating, and there are results that are accidental assists. Zeke getting an accidental assist is perfect. That was just a cherry on top of the whole thing.
And I just loved how, like, for a split second, he was like, damn it.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about Zeke shifting from the wing to central midfield, because it was very, very apparent that was a move to open things up in a lot of sense. I think Gabby was frustrated that things were so congested in that first half, especially towards the end. So he brings Ibarra off, shifts Zeke central, brings on Jurgen Damm, and actually flipped Marcelino over to the left side, put Damm on the right, which I thought was interesting. And Zeke and Damm were on the right, if that makes sense.
And Heinze basically explained this by saying that Alajuelense was just playing so deep and so compact centrally that they needed more creativity in that central area of the field. And I think that not only did that move work tactically in the context of the game and what Alajuelense was doing, but I also just tend to think that that is the best position for Ezequiel Barco. I kind of look at him as a tweener as well in terms of his skill sets. I've watched him. So in 2018, early in 2018, we were still able to like watch some of training up close. The way that they had media at Atlanta United's training ground situated, like we were still able to like basically be right outside just like a glass barrier essentially between us and the training field. And I will never forget watching Ezequiel Barco in some of those training sessions run with the ball. It's like the most majestic thing ever. Like you just see the ball. It's like making these perfect when he touches it with his foot, like the revolutions wouldn't change. It was beautiful. But also, so he's good in that sense on the wing, but on the downside, he's just like too slow or too indecisive, in key moments where he has to play the ball to somebody, and it really hurts the team.
This is my thing where I was freaking out a bit last night and maybe mumbling some stuff under my breath. I can get away with that more when I'm socially distanced from other people in the press corps. But there was a moment in transition where Zeke was on the break. He had, I forget who it was, I want to say Emo, out wide open on the left side and just did not play the pass and instead ran into traffic. And I kind of lost my shit a little bit. Because again, it comes back to that whole idea again, the term ball stopper is just going to come up over and over again. It's been a big Matt Doyle criticism of him for a while, his ability to not see that key pass. And we kind of like joked about it before, because that one instance was, so it felt arbitrary at the time, but now that we're seeing it more and more and more, it does kind of seem like Zeke is lacking that instinct or maybe just the confidence to play that kind of final ball. He figured out a little bit towards the end. There was a couple of better transition moments, but again, we've seen it a few times in his first few games where on the break, he has not made the right choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't know what the answer is in terms of like, I don't think that he's incapable of playing these passes. Like, I think he's trying to make the best decision that he can and trying to not, play a ball where he's going to lose it.
I think I want to offer a counterpoint in saying that he's trying to make the 5 best decisions he can all at the same
Exactly.
time.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. Yeah. So, and what I still haven't put my finger on is why he seems to be better in a central area where it's like you would still think that, the same kinds of indecisiveness issues would crop up no matter what position you're necessarily playing. But maybe there's something about him being able to find player when he's playing centrally. He's more looking for the players in the wing on the wings that are in open space, and it's easier for him to spot those balls and to play those and confidence to play those passes. So maybe that's one of the reasons, but he just certainly does seem better, and the team looks more threatening when he's playing in a central position.
Completely agree. Completely agree. Let's move back a step. Let's go ahead and talk about, we'll go to George Bello. I thought George maybe didn't get as forward as I would have liked. Maybe just didn't have the opportunities to get as forward as I would have liked. But defensively last night, I thought he put in a really solid shift, especially towards the end of the second half where they were really, really trying to go after that wing, it seemed like. But George was in a better position this time. He didn't get burned like we saw a few times in the first leg and did a nice job overall.
Yeah, it was a gritty performance from George. It did seem like they were doing a lot of their attacking down that right side. And I don't know if that's because they have better quality down that side or if they were targeting George specifically as like a way space that they could exploit. But yeah, I mean, I thought he was pretty good, especially just like throwing his body around. He was like doing a lot of like slide tackling to like, stop, block a passing lane or just to regain possession of the ball. And I thought he was generally good. It looked like he was having some trouble with his footing. He slipped one time in particular that really created a chance for Alajuelense, but he did well enough.
That Kennesaw turf is tricky. It's that weird hybrid artificial. And you could see last night that they were playing a few passes and it would like skip, and they would just throw their hands up and go, okay, whatever. There's nothing we can do about that.
It looks gorgeous on TV, and it's extremely well manicured field. But I have heard from players who have played on it just saying that it's extremely slippery. And I think it's gotten a little bit better, but like especially when they first started playing on that field, and I think it was 2018, it was really bad. It's like one of those like hybrid surfaces that's like partially grass and interwoven with some artificial turf, but yeah, I mean, back to George. I mean, I thought he was decent. I thought he was a little bit better in the away leg, but I mean, I think that that's just kind of the way it's going to go for fullbacks. And sometimes you just have to have a game where you just do a little bit more of that dirty work, and he did it well.
Yeah, if someone goes back and watches George and just like a replay of this game and figures out why maybe he wasn't getting as many touches on the wing, that'd be kind of good to know. Maybe that should be one of us. I don't know. I don't have the time. I'm going to be honest. But overall, hopefully it's a little bit of a confidence boost defensively. I also want to shout out Extra Time Radio and our buddy Matt and Weeby and everyone like that. They did a great interview with George. Go check that out on Extra Time as well. I had to laugh though as soon as I heard his voice. His voice just keeps getting deeper and deeper, and it's weird to watch someone you cover grow
up, become from a boy to a man. He is he is noticeably like bigger, stronger.
He is getting bigger all the time. Yeah. It seems like, yeah, absolutely.
He's getting footballers' legs.
Sure. I do want to say too, there was one moment last night where George was kind of the back line kind of got compact and the ball got sprung out wide to a La Liga player. And George's short burst, it was like a linebacker hitting the A gap kind of thing, but it was so explosive. It was immediately noticeable. I don't think anyone else has the team really has that kind of ability to get low and short burst out to a guy like that. It was awesome to watch. The athleticism is very real. We'll flip sides to another very athletic human, Brooks Lennon. I don't know how much we want to add on this. I thought, again, he was very good getting forward. The overlapping play was really, really solid. Final ball wasn't quite there yet. It hopefully will be. But once again, Brooks Lennon keeps putting in a damn shift up and down the whole time. Never stopped running, it seemed like. Was really, really solid.
I think he's been one of Atlanta's best players.
Absolutely.
Maybe their best or second best player in these last two games. I mean, I think he's just been so good, and it's really impressive for a guy who, he's been playing right back for a while now, but he's still somewhat, I don't want to say new to it, but he's still just kind of developing himself at the position. So especially just like the defensive instincts, and thankfully for him, he hasn't had a ton to do. Again, it seems like they've been targeting Bellows' side for the most part in both of the legs, but he creates a lot. And again, just the energy that he brings is kind of irreplaceable. And it's going to be very hard for Ronald Hernandez to fight his way into this team if Brooks Lennon keeps playing this way.
I kind of want to shift this into just talking about the back line as a whole. Of course, Miles and Antod, again, very, very good. And I wrote this in the mothership last night that you already have a back line that I think is among the best in the league. If you were taking that as a back four with Bello, Walks, Robinson, and Lennon. And then even you have Santiago Sosa, who we'll talk about in a second, shielding that. That is an extremely solid spine. That is an extremely solid back line in general and defensive setup in general, with the added ability of those guys to get forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
You throw in a DP center back into the equation. This is it's probably the best. It's a top 3 spine in the league at the very least. If you look at that number 5 position with Sosa and the 2 center backs, and then you look at the 2 fullbacks, this is maybe the best defensive unit. And I'm so scared to say this because I haven't looked exactly at every single team's and assessed them against Atlanta, but that is damn good. And what's important about that to me is that when this team is struggling to score, while they're struggling to score, if you can just keep a clean sheet every game, it's going to make those growing pains a lot easier to suffer through.
Yeah, I'm backing off of my prediction that I made a few weeks ago when we were kind of previewing the season. And I said that this team was going to score a bunch of goals, but also give up a ton of goals. And they were going to have games where they lose these big games. It's becoming harder for me to see them having games where they give up 4 or 5 goals, because even when they are maybe out of sync and being a little bit over aggressive offensively, again, we talked about maybe trying to force the issue in terms of rotations and just having more fluidity in the team that can leave you exposed at times. You're going to have players like Miles Robinson and Alan Franco specifically, who are like very speedy center backs and are going to be very good in those kinds of recovery situations. So I think that even though there will be times where Atlanta does leave themselves exposed, I think that those 2 players in particular are going to be like specialized in stopping some of those situations from resulting in goals for the opposition. So, and we talked about, Ronald Hernandez making his way in the team. Alan Franco is going to be in the starting 11, but it's going to be very interesting to see how quickly they incorporate him when Anton Walks is playing this way, because I don't really want to go swept under the rug how good that he's been in these 2 games. I think that he's done everything that Gabriel Heinze would have asked of someone like him to do in terms of not just defending, but playing with the ball on the left side, not his natural side. I just think he's been really, really impressive. And, is there a way that you could incorporate, or that Gabriel Heinze may want to incorporate, all 3 of those center backs? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they work out that situation.
Yeah, I mean, they very well could. I'm not quite sure how the mechanics of that would work in like a 3-5-2 or anything like that, or even a 3-4-3. But no, I mean, 1-2-3 at center back, that is as good as anything in the league, and it may be better. Unreal, honestly. But it helps when you have a player like Santiago Sosa right in front of you and able to drop back in and show that. I once again thought he was very, very good. Not as solid as in that first leg. He didn't get the chance to make those switches that were so intriguing and engaging in this one, but in defense, his positioning is just solid. He is extremely athletic. He is bright. His head for the game is very, very sharp. You can tell. And his technical ability is there as well, and only has room to improve. I'm just kind of blown away by how good he's been.
It was an interesting game to watch Santiago Sosa play, because he was definitely in a different role, or he was asked to do a different thing than he was in the first leg, where in the first leg, every time Atlanta United had the ball, he was dropping in as the deepest lying player on the field behind the 2 center backs who he would split. And in this one, when Atlanta was in buildup, it was just the 2 center backs back, and he was playing in front of them for most of the time. There were times then he would drop in, probably just to try to see if it would create any disruption in Alajuelense's shape. But I think that actually took away from him a little bit, and just in terms of he wasn't able to get himself on the ball as much and kind of impose himself on the game quite as much as he was in the first leg. I kind of referred to him in the first leg as being like a quarterback who's like has the ball in every play and is kind of setting up everything. He didn't really have that role to me in this one, but he was still very effective in what he was able to do. And I think that him playing a little bit higher up the field, to your point, allowed him to be a little bit more aggressive defensively in terms of winning the ball back and doing those kinds of things.
And it's awesome when it happens because he's such a, I don't have a good terminology for it that's appropriate for our PG rated show, but just adding him and Ibarra in there to ruin things.
Yeah, tenacious.
Things up. Tenacious. There we go. Much better than the curse words I had. It's a whole different midfield, it feels like, with those guys. It changes so much to just have folks who are able to clatter into folks, who are able to, foul the right time and make smart decisions like that. It's so fun to watch. And again, watching for like I did from that horizontal plane of existence, I missed some things, right? Like I couldn't quite tell exactly how deep the low block for Alajuelense was or anything like that. But watching Sosa move side to side and his positioning, there was a few times in particular where LDA decided that they were going to try to hit in transition over the top. They were going to try to hit centrally because when Sosa steps up and the center backs are wide, there's space narrow. If you can go over the top, you have folks isolated. You can maybe even get a numbers advantage, which is 2 folks back there. So if you somehow end up with 3 folks going forward, that is that advantage because Sosa has moved forward. But again, Miles and Anton swept it up. But a few times Sosa came over too as well and read the play really, really well. Laruinowitz-esque even, and cut the ball off.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize again, not only do Santiago Sosa and Franco Ibarra both show that they have quality to be, obviously they're going to be players who are hugely influential in this team throughout the season. They are 21 years old and 19 years old.
Yeah.
They are both younger than Machop Chol. Like they, it's like crazy to think about how young they are. They are 2 of the youngest players on this roster. George Campbell is 19. Jackson Conway is 19. That's the kind of age we're talking about. And they're already able to be this good. Like I just have very high hopes for both of them. And they both have so much that they can still improve. Like that's what their age shows, is that they're still just very young into their careers. And to already be displaying this quality is very exciting.
It's extremely encouraging. And we'll talk more about Franco right now. And the fact that him and Anderson Heinemann have the same haircut, same body type. They are practically indistinguishable in every way except for the number. It's difficult. It's difficult. I thought Franco was good, though, for the time he was in. Again, that shift happened at the substitution in the second half. And I think that was just confidence. That was not a knock on Ibarra. That was just confidence from Gabriel Alajuelense that this team could push forward a little more. And they very easily could. It was clear to see that. And, of course, it opened things up a little more. But even still, he felt confident enough that other players could control things. And they did. They did. It was the right move.
And I think that, and I don't think this is what Gabriel Heinze had in mind when he was making that decision, but I think that it helps Franco Ibarra be fresher for the game at the weekend as well. Obviously, playing a couple games beforehand, especially what do they have? It's kind of like a short week for them. Basically, they've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday between the games. So I think that will be good for him. I will be interested to see if maybe Ibarra starts over Emerson Hyndman in this game because of that. I don't know. I'm very curious to see what the next starting lineup looks like because of the conversation that we had with Barco. It's like, whether do you continue to start Barco on the wing and adjust during the game if you need to, or do you just start him centrally and add another winger and maybe remove either an Emerson Hyndman or Franco Ibarra? But yeah, I mean, I thought he played well. He seems consistent because he just gives you that energy and that, again, the tenacity that you want out of a central midfielder.
Real quick, we'll hit on Emerson, and then we'll kind of talk a little bit more about Orlando. We said this was going to be a short show, and now we're already sitting on like 40 minutes. Emerson, I enjoyed it a few times last night. He drifted kind of into a wider channel, and he took some dudes on. There was a couple times in the box where he did even a couple step overs and got around some folks and made some things happen. I thought he was more aggressive going forward. And then from there, it was kind of a typical Emerson game where I didn't quite see too much of him, but he certainly didn't ruin anything.
Yeah, he was really bright early. I thought he had a really a decent combination play with Ezequiel Barco early in the game. And I think it resulted in him having a shot, a decent shot that I think was blocked. But yeah, I think it was a good game from Heineman. He's a player that is just very interesting because again, we talked about this on our last podcast, but you just don't notice him a lot, which is good and bad, I think, for the role that he plays. Not bad, honestly. It's good that you don't notice a player like him, making obvious mistakes, because in the position that he plays, it's very crucial to avoid making mistakes. Like that's the number one priority, and he doesn't seem to do it that often. He's pretty well-rounded player in terms of like he just gives you just enough of everything, but I think that also that's why we've had so much trouble over time trying to figure out exactly what he is, because he's just an all-rounder, no clear like positive qualities that stand out over others, is just like kind of a jack of all trades kind of player.
It'll be interesting to see, like you said, if he starts against Orlando, and I think we can kind of move into now kind of looking forward to that. Happy hate week, y'all. I feel good. I feel things about it. I'm fascinated to see what happens both on the internet and on the field now that both teams are actually kind of good. It's the first time that's happened. It could break the website as we know it entirely. It could break MLS as we know it entirely.
Well, I want you to kind of give a breakdown, because my knowledge of MLS teams and the wider league in general is much less than yours. You're the expert here in this area. So can you kind of give us the breakdown of what to expect from Orlando coming into this game? Because honestly, I don't really know a ton about them.
I'm not quite an expert. I'm more like in second year of like a master's degree. I'm still working on moving towards my doctorate, I think. But I can tell you this, Orlando is a very, very solid attacking team. You should know this by now. What'll be interesting to see is they are going to be missing Mauricio Pereira. That's their good, really, really talented number 10 who kind of pulls the strings for him, instead of Andres Pereira, who you may recognize from that U23 team in the Olympics that did not make the Olympics, will probably take over in midfield for that. Other than that, though, you're kind of looking at a team that is, missing Daryl DK, but you add in someone like Alexandre Pato, who will probably start at the number 9 for them. And he's coupled on the wings by Nani and Chris Mueller, the Money Badger. Both of those, that's the two, besides LAFC, that's probably the best wing combination in the entire league.
It still blows my mind that I'm about to see Atlanta United playing against Alejandro Pato, who was one of the first signings that I ever made in the first Football Manager that I ever played, in Football Manager 11, before Atlanta United was a thing, and when Alejandro Pato was like one of the best players in the world.
It's crazy, and the Nani's just kind of hanging out there too, which is
yeah.
wild. But no, this is going to be a far greater test for that back line that I've been hyping up than anything Alajuelense could have possibly thrown at him. This is one of the best attacking teams in the league. It is year 2 under Oscar Pereira. It is a team that is already very, very confident in its ability to get forward, but then you throw in a player like Pato, you bring in extra help with a new winger in Sylvester Vanderwater, who played for Heracles, I think is how you say it, but had a good scoring record there, add some extra things to what they're trying to do, and still just kind of looking at the 2 deep here, they're still very, very deep in attack. The back line is what it is. You've got Uwan on the right side, who is extremely fast. He's one of the fastest players in the entire league. It's going to be super interesting to see how he goes after, I think it'd be George. George is going to have to deal with Juan and Chris Mueller. Those are 2 extremely athletic, extremely explosive dudes. And if he is not in those right positions, and if he is caught out a couple of times, they're going to be able to torch us on that side. And I imagine they'll go with the same kind of thing, where they attack on that side and see what they can get out of 2 very talented players.
And I guess it's to that point too, it will be interesting to see if Alan Franco plays for Atlanta United, because
this would be the game.
It would be, because of his speed, and he is fresh. I mean, he's coming off of COVID, so he hasn't played in a couple weeks, but he was playing matches and regularly training before then, so it's not like catching up on fitness is going to be too much of an issue for Franco, and he's been training all week since he joined the team. So I'll be interested to see if Gabriel Heinze does end up inserting him, just so we can cover some of those spaces in behind George.
Exactly. I would not be surprised if Atlanta loses this one at all.
Mm-hmm.
right now, just because again,
I mean,
this
do
game
you
one.
know who's the favorite? Like, who's the betting favorite in this game? I'm not
I
sure.
don't. I don't. I don't. Tom Bogert
Yeah, I
needs
would
to
imagine
start
it
his
would might
betting
be
book.
Orlando.
I would imagine so. I would imagine so, especially at home. It's gonna be something for sure. I'm just interested again to see how the back line reacts. I'm interested to see what Orlando looks like with both DK and Pereira not available. Pereira is so crucial to what they do a lot of the time. I'm not sure Andres Pereira kind of can make up for that, but we'll see. We'll see, and we'll see what you guys had to ask about this one and more when we go to the questions after this quick break. What a break. You guys had questions. We'll start with this one from Kevin from Kirkwood, who asked, is Emerson Heineman now Dom's biggest fan? I think we found our new rage target. And he brings up a good point, and that if Jurgen Damm had not accidentally been gifted a goal, he was really bad. Really bad.
It was funny because there were two times Dom was on a breakaway, and the first time he just took way too long and never really made a decision and let the chance go by. And then the next time, it was the complete opposite, where he had a great run coming from Lisandro Lopez, who he could have played through on goal, and said he took like a left-footed shot from not a great spot. And I can't remember what happened to it, but I mean, I will say, sorry, go ahead.
No, there was just one time where he just started dribbling backwards into nothing and gave the ball away, and it was that huge chance Alajuelense had that Rocco actually had to work for the first time all night, and it just went wide. Please calm down, Jurgen.
I will say the speed is quite nice to have coming off the bench in the second half. Like it is noticeable pace. And if you're going to get up against that's not what a tired fullback who's been out there for an hour would want to see coming onto the field.
And you have to react to it in some way. You can't just ignore it, even if Dom's quality isn't phenomenal on the ball. You have to react to it. He reminds me of the kid Fulton from Mighty Ducks.
From Mighty Ducks, Fulton Reed.
Yes, thank you. Who could just hit the ever living heck out of the puck and can like break glass and stuff. You don't necessarily have to worry about it too much. He's only going to like hit the net like once every 20 tries or whatever. But you kind of have to do something about it, right? Like whether that's get out of the way or whatever. So Jurgen Damm comes on and just kind of makes the other team do something different. There you go. That's the whole bit.
I do think Emerson is pleased though that there's another target for people's rage.
I think we'll hold off too much though until we see Jurgen Damm's contract. Jonathan from Twitter asked, having quality coaches like Tata, FTB-ish, and now Heinze, if Barco doesn't produce, is it harder to sell him since even a couple of great coaches couldn't develop and help him reach his potential? And then we kind of hit on this before. We won't spend too much time on this, but this is the year, right?
Has nothing to do with the coaches. He just has to produce, like in general. It doesn't matter.
That's it. Make something happen.
But yes, he does
do it on purpose.
He does need a big year this year if he wants to make that move.
There you go. Philip Jeffcoat asked, I was only able to watch half the game, but it appears Atlanta struggled to move the ball up the middle of the field. This is a good. This is a good question, Jeff Coates. Ball up the middle of the field. Problem we saw. A problem we saw last year. Do you think this is an issue we will continue to see again this year, or am I just looking too much into it? Thanks, Philip. It's a good question because again, all those chances were coming from the wing, but again, just want to point out there was a low block. There was a very central block, I guess you could say, for La Liga last night. I'm not too worried about it yet, just based on the nature of the game. If they can't do it maybe against an Orlando team that's really, really open, maybe then I'll be worried.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's the right assessment from Mr. Jeffcoat, but yeah, I think it's pretty early still, and this team is still just kind of working through some preseason rust and just gelling and things like that. So again, like with early FTB, I will be saying, let's be patient with with these guys. And I have full confidence that this team's going to score a bunch.
We do just want to hit on, though, I mean, you mentioned like with FTB, there are far more reasons for optimism, I think, with what we're seeing so far than those first few days first few games with FDB, in my opinion, just based on the rotation, just based on the talent, just based on the setup of the system. Agreed?
Yeah, agree.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Nick asked, who is the actual captain of Atlanta United? Seems to be Gazan, but I think we'd all enjoy it if it was Joseph. People are like, and Nick, I don't mean to bash you or anything here, but people are like super into this whole captain thing. Y'all, they literally throw the armband around half the time. Like if someone gets subbed out, they're like passing it to each other. Like it's not a big deal.
I think like who's already worn it this season? Brad, Heineman, Joseph, Lissandro.
Yeah.
There's somebody else. Oh, and Miles got it, I think, at the end of this game. So that's already like five or six players.
Every time the captain gets subbed out, they should literally do like the throwing of the bouquet at a wedding. Everyone should line up and someone should throw it behind the head.
Yes, that would be amazing.
That's about the level of actual care with this. It's a bit different when you have someone like Michael Parkhurst and other leaders who can be a connection to the coaching staff and everything like that. On the field, though, meh.
Yeah. It is kind of funny to juxtapose it though with Frank, who was like, Brad is our captain, vice captains are blank, like this person, and this person. It was like very structured, which was like makes sense and completely different now, it seems. If I was a player, I would say like let's just screw with all the fans and just like give it to somebody different every single time.
Hand it to a fan. I don't know. Just like hand it to a ball boy. There you go. He is now the captain of our team. Please relay all complaints to this small child with the ball. Jacob asks, seeing a lot of talk about ATL lacking someone that can play that final killer pass. Do you agree? And if so, how's this team overcome that and create more high quality scoring chances? Jacob, ask a good question here. And my thought has always kind of been, it's either going to be a player that steps up or the system is going to have to raise everyone else up to a point where those final balls are coming. And right now the system hasn't quite done it, but it seems like it's going to be the system and not just one dude stepping up. It's going to take some time. As far as being able to play that final killer pass, I do kind of wonder as well. That's been my thing from the very beginning. You remember my hot take prediction was that this team was going to score less than that 2019 FTB team. And it's simply because I just don't quite know where the final product is still coming from. Yeah, especially with Joseph hurt and a whole bunch of other guys who, again, only Joseph, Lissandro, Cubo are the only players who ever scored more than 4 goals at the top flight in any league, any league on this team. You know, it's a worry.
I think that like when you look at the game yesterday, it's kind of I kind of see it as almost like a fallacy that there's going to be like some player that can play some amazing magic pass that unlocks the defense and creates a great goal scoring opportunity for Joseph. Because just the way that the team that Alajuelense was set up, it's not conducive to something like that happening. Really what you want to see, I'd prefer to see in a game like this is just more of like a peppering of lesser chances. Like you're just not realistically going to break through and have these amazing chances to score when a team is set up like that, but you can still beat them in other ways, which we saw again Tata Martino do all the time. And I think that there is the quality in this team to play those final balls. I just think it's so early in the season. It's just players still just trying to figure out what each other are doing. So, which we've talked about a bunch already in this show. So I'm not worried.
All right. Those were the long questions. These are the quick questions. Joe Patrick, this is rapid fire. Joel asked, how nice was it for you guys to be back at an actual live sporting event last night?
For Braves, it was awesome. I was not at the game last night, Atlanta United game, but for Braves, it's awesome. Just like seeing all the people, you can really feel the positive energy of just everybody happy to be there.
Yeah, everyone is like in just a really good mood. Like you feel like no one's gonna like get into a fight or anything like that in these games, just because it is kind of so positive. It felt good, Joel. Tommy asked, is Joe Patrick the dread god of this podcast? Pretty sure he hyped up Eric Lopez so much that we will never see him again.
Eric Lopez is the guy who's going to be playing in those line splitting, unlocking the defense type of passes.
The key to it all. Don't want to put that out too early.
They don't want to let Orlando see him. You know, they're just waiting for Orlando, and then
secret weapon. Pierce asks Mulroney or Dom for right wing if Barker goes centrally like the second half on Saturday. I am going to say Mulroney.
I'll say Eric Lopez.
God damn it. Joel asks, is Lennon a robot? He was pushing forward more and tracking back faster than Dom last night. His stamina is incredible. Joel, why would you ask that? Joel, why would we, Joel, he's not a robot or anything like that. Please stop asking questions, Joel, you motherfucker. Okay. Kyle asks, why can't we score? Kyle, the answer is plate tectonics. Santa asks, who will be the number 2 goal scorer on our squad this season? Great question. Marcelino.
I will say, I feel like I got to stick to my guns and say Ezequiel Barco, which I think is a little bit, I think that's like, I can't think of the word. I lost it.
Rapid fire. Okay, that was it.
Controversial.
Yeah. Rapid fire.
Good Lord, we need to end this thing.
Rapid fire. Thank you. Shout out Santa United. Always love a good question from Santa. Joe, any final thoughts before we... Oh, I have a final thought. Go check out our interview with Darren Eales on the Patreon. It's unlocked for everyone. If you're listening to the free show, you can just go to our Patreon. I think it's actually in the feed as well.
It's in this feed as well. Yep.
But we also have a whole bunch of other stuff coming on Patreon. You're going to want to subscribe, especially for this next interview happening in about 3 hours or so. Crap, we should probably prepare for that. Yeah, so go check that out. Go check out our Patreon 5-star final.
Great stuff happening on the Patreon. Even you want to join on as soon as you can because there are so many good guests that will still be great listens. Like I'm kind of jealous of people who would just like get to go back and listen to like Parkhurst and Bobby Boswell and all this stuff for the first time. I wish I could relive those conversations for the first time. Anyway, my final thought is Orlando is a favorite in the game over Atlanta. Oh. Orlando's a plus 105. Atlanta is a plus 265. So pretty big difference there.
All right, y'all. Happy hate week. Enjoy it. Go get some sun. Go stretch your legs a little bit. It's gonna be a lot this weekend. A lot of couch sitting, a lot of MLSing, a lot of Atlanta Uniteding. It should be fun. We'll be back to talk about it next week. Until then, have a great weekend. We love you. I'm Corva Coleman. Bye, y'all.